Tithing is a test to see whether or not you trust God for your finances. It's also a test to see whether or not you believe God owns everything you have, or you're arrogantly thinking what you have is yours. See, what is a tithe? A tithe is 10% of our income goes to God. In Hebrew and in Greek, the word tithe means tenth. I don't know if you recognize this, but the number 10 is associated with the number of testings. For example, God sent 10 plagues to Pharaoh to get him to let God's people go. God gave Israel how many commandments? Yes, 10 commandments. How many fingers do you have? 10 fingers. The Bible tells us that Israel was tested by God in the wilderness 10 times. See, the number 10 is associated with that. 10 times, the Bible says, Jacob's wages was changed by his uncle. 10 times. In other words, it's a test of fidelity. 10 days, Daniel and his friends were tested to see whether or not eating the foods that God required under the old covenant would be sufficient. It was 10 days. God told the church in the book of Revelation that you will be thrown into prison for 10 days so that Satan would test you. That's what the Bible says. 10 is a number of testing. Then, of course, Jesus gave the parable of the 10 virgins. You remember that? The 10 virgins, to see who would be faithful and keep enough oil. In other words, what I'm trying to show you is tithe is really 10%, and it's a sign of testing to you. See, when you tithe, what you're saying to God is, I'm trusting you with my finances. When you tithe, you're saying to God that this first fruits is yours, therefore the whole batch is holy. In other words, I'm acknowledging you own everything. A lot of times people will say to me, well, God, why do I have to give God 10%? He owns more than 10%. Of course he owns more than 10%. He owns everything. But you giving 10% is a test. And some of you are failing the test. And it's important that you start passing the test. Now, some people will say, oh, no, tithing is in the Old Testament. It's under law of Moses. I'm not under the law. Can I tell you the truth? Listen, tithing is a way of life for me. It's not a law. So I don't tithe because I'm under some sort of law of Moses. First of all, we're not under the law of Moses. But Moses also said, don't commit adultery, don't murder. I don't say I can commit adultery and murder because it's under the law of Moses. Just because something's under the law of Moses doesn't make it under the law strictly, because tithing preceded the law and it comes after the law. The point is, my brothers and sisters, you tithing is you passing the test of fidelity to God and you trusting God for your finances.